All right, Bubba, start cleaning those tires up. On green this time. Remember, they fan out down there, so protect that bottom. Sunday drive. All right, boss man. These cars off. Be ready. All right, Bub, be ready. Gas that bitch up. Ready. Green flag. Green.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Inside Pass on WSIC. Thank you so much for watching us and or listening to us, or I don't know if Facebook Live is up yet, but if it is, then, it is. Okay, so if you're watching us on Facebook Live, thank you so much for watching us there as well. I'm Randy Miller, Tom Becker, sitting over in the Selman seat, as he usually is, as we continue practicing social distancing in the midst of the coronavirus situation. There has not been a whole lot of news this morning, but there was a lot of news yesterday. So we'll catch you guys up on everything that happened yesterday. And then coming up in the next segment, we will be joined by Sports Business Journal NASCAR journalist Adam Stern. He is probably the TMZ of NASCAR sports broadcasting in terms of breaking news and breaking information. So he will hopefully have all the latest information for us when he joins us in just a little bit. So in the last 24 hours, we have had Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, and Texas all say they are on board with hosting a NASCAR race without fans in attendance. Texas has since kind of downplayed their desire to be the first and said that they would rather wait until June, which was the originally rescheduled date for the Texas race in the first place. But they want to do a doubleheader, and now they're looking at doing a quadruple header, which would be Xfinity Trucks, IndyCar, and NASCAR all on the same potential weekend. So it'd be like 2 days, two races and two races. Basically, fly in, race, and fly out. That's the game plan as it is with Eddie Gossage and the folks at Texas. So now we're down to a potentially three-way battle between, Florida, which would be either Homestead or Daytona, Darlington and South Carolina, and Atlanta to see who's going to host the first race back. It's kind of a first one to the checkered flag. It's almost like a green-white checkered overtime finish in a NASCAR race between these tracks, trying to figure out who's going to be the first race back for NASCAR, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, a week ago we just didn't have a clue if or when we would ever host a race, and here we are 7 days later, and we got tracks fighting over the comeback. The problem is that the governments are still in the way in some cases. So there are some states that are more excited than others. The first NASCAR race that's on the schedule going forward would be Martinsville. Well, actually, Martinsville got canceled, so or postponed. So Charlotte would be next up if you go by the current schedule pre-coronavirus. But Roy Cooper is squarely in the way of that right now.
Correct.
So, and in fact, he's square in the way of it all because unless and until either A, the lockdown in North Carolina goes off, it expires at the end of the month, or B, he makes NASCAR essential, in which case the teams can get back in the shops, we're not going racing anywhere.
Right, exactly. So the NASCAR teams basically have two cars already set and ready to go, Atlanta and Homestead. Those are the two tracks that were up next on the schedule. So those cars are essentially ready to go. So if it were a situation where Homestead would be the first race back, they could conceivably go to the shop, grab a car, and leave and not really have too much prepare work to do. The schedule that we are talking about has never really been made official. It was basically just kind of floating around on social media a couple of weeks ago, where NASCAR had given teams a revised copy of what they think the schedule would look like if the coronavirus situation went on into May. As it is right now, it looks like it's going to somewhere between the end of April and mid-May. It looks like we might be able to get out of this lockdown. But the schedule that was originally given to the teams has the next scheduled race being the Coca-Cola 600, which was the race that we all thought would be the next race back anyways, because we figured Martinsville wasn't going to be on the schedule anyways, and it has since been postponed.
Right.
So essentially the next race that is on the schedule is the Coca-Cola 600. But again, that's all depending upon Cooper and whether he decides to let NASCAR be deemed essential so that the teams can get those cars ready, or if we have to rearrange the schedule again and do different races first. Later on in the show, we're going to talk about what we think the schedule might be, or what we would, if we were in charge of the schedule, what we would do to kind of make things fit back into place. Because essentially, we're not really losing any more races because Martinsville was already off of the revised schedule anyway and re-put in later on. So if the schedule is ran the way it was given to teams as of now, then we're okay and we're on track as of right now.
Right. Yes. If we could start at Charlotte Memorial Weekend as planned, then yes, the schedule, the the maybe we could do it this way schedule that was floated around a few weeks ago could still be done. But even with that, you still have to be conscious of, if we come to a point in the schedule where you're up against the state that's not open yet, then you got to make further changes. So the problem you've got is that it seems like every day, I mean, last night on Lead Lap, for example, we kind of chronicled throughout the show the whole situation in Texas where, first the governor said, yes, we'd love to have NASCAR without fans. Then Eddie Gossage jumped on board. Then later in the show on Twitter, the mayor of Fort Worth jumped on board. So all through the show, I mean, literally it's changing that rapidly where, in this hour that we're spending doing this show, you could have X number of states open and, whatever. It's just that fluid. Yep. So it's got to be just a nightmare for NASCAR to try to figure all this out.
Yeah, to me, it would seem like you would want to at least figure out the first probably 7-8 weeks of the season to at least get you through to maybe June, somewhere in June timeframe, and then see where the other tracks are at that point. But there's tracks on the schedule that haven't been, like Kansas is the race after the 600, and we don't know what Kansas situation they're in. So that's a whole other thing. We're going to take a quick break in a minute, but I do want to mention two things. First of all, I guess it's a little bit of breaking news. The fan vote for the 2021 Hall of Fame class is open. You can go to NASCARHallOfFame.com to vote for your favorite nominee. And the ratings are in for the iRacing race on Sunday. 971,000 total viewers, 291,000 in the 18 to 49 demographic. That is a weekly increase in that demographic. So I guess it's good for the next generation guys. We're going to take a break. Hopefully Adam Stern will be with us when we come back on the Inside Pass. We'll be right back.
Greater Statesville, WSIC, where Huntersville turns first for breaking news and severe weather alerts.
race fans. This is Chris Wright. Thanks for listening to these guys. Man, what some great radio hosts. You're listening to the Inside Pass.
Welcome back to the Inside Pass here on WSIC. Thank you so much for watching us. If you're watching us on digital channel 25.2 in the greater Lake Norman area, or on one of the three WSIC stations, 100 and 105.9 FM, 100.7 FM, or 1400 AM, or if you're listening to us on the live stream, WSICFM.com, or on Facebook Live at the WSIC News Facebook page. Thank you so much no matter how you are listening to us. If you miss today's show, you can always catch us on any of the podcasting sites that you choose as your favorite. Just search for Race Chaser Radio, and it is right there. You can also catch it on the Inside Pass website, which is InsidePassLive.com. There's also a schedule of upcoming guests there as well. Also, if you want to give us a call and tell us what you think about the potential schedule, or what race you would like to see, or what track you would like to see NASCAR go back to, since we're kind of in this whole, what are we going to do with the schedule at this point in time, you can give us a call at 704-873-1400 and let us know what track you would like to see NASCAR run at. One of the tracks we know they are not going to be running out anytime soon is in Sonoma, California, because the California government basically has outlawed and banned sports completely and totally for the next year. So they are not going to allow sporting events until 2021, which makes it almost a guarantee that Sonoma is not going to be on the schedule for the rest of 2020. So that's one race that we know that they will definitely have to take into account when they start doing the schedule. So should NASCAR take this uncertainty to try to do things with the schedule, Tom, that you wouldn't normally see? I mean, we're looking at the schedule that NASCAR gave out, and it has obviously every track that we've run for the last 10 years, just in a different order. But I think a lot of people on social media are wanting NASCAR to go, you know what? You guys want to run tracks that are close proximity to the shops. So there's all these tracks that we either don't run at anymore or don't get a chance to go to anymore for whatever reason or another. So wouldn't it be a good idea to try to play around with the schedule now, since you know you're going to do that next year anyway, and just see what works? Just throw silly putty at a wall and see what sticks.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because we talked about that last night on the Lead Lap, because as we were doing the show and we were trying to process kind of where we are, I started to think about, well, gosh, this situation going on now has a great effect on what's going to happen in 21, doesn't it? Because the expectation that we went into this season with was that this is the final season of all of the current agreements with the tracks, between NASCAR and the tracks. And that 21 was going to be a huge experimental year, and you were going to really see some different changes, again, talking about things like maybe Nashville, Iowa Cup race, different things like that. Now I feel like this current situation will completely change that for 21, because you would be wanting right now, we would be 4 months, almost 5 months into the season if we hadn't had the interruption. And those who figure out scheduling would be working hard on the 21 schedule right now. Now, everybody's so consumed with trying to figure out how in the world are we going to do 2020. I don't think you're going to see much experimentation in 2021 at this point. I'd be surprised, in fact, to see a schedule that looks much different from what this year's was going to, because they're not going to have time to work on all that sufficiently on the new stuff. So here's the scenario we could have in NASCAR right now is we do what we can for the rest of this year. 2021 becomes what 2020 would have been, right? And 2022 becomes the year that we start seeing some of the kind of deviations and one-offs and different types of bells and whistles just in time for the brand new Gen 7 car.
Right.
Which to me is really intriguing because, you know, you think about taking that car, for example, to Nashville, you know, it's just, it creates a whole different dynamic and set of potential storylines for 22 that not only do you have the Gen 7 car, but you could have, you know, a really unique and different schedule of races for 2022. But I think that, Justin Sullivan in our chat saying go to Sebring instead of Sonoma. That's an interesting thought. But of course, again, all of this is the problem with bringing a brand new track into the fold is that you've got to contact the track, make the logistical arrangements, do all the things you need to do to try to, to get that up and running. Now, I think the first at least probably half dozen or more races you're going to run without fans anyway.
Right.
But so these are going to be made for TV shows. But again, looking ahead at the schedule, I'm not sure I see 2021 being the sort of radical experimental year that we once did, just because all the time we would be spending now working on 21 under regular circumstances, we're now spending just trying to keep up with what's going on every day to try to figure out 2020.
Which we don't know how far into the 2021 schedule they have gotten. I mean, we don't know where they were at in the process when all this stuff started taking place. It's possible the schedule could have already been done and they were just kind of keeping it under wraps for a little while. Or if there were certain tracks that they knew they were going to put on the schedule that they could easily just plug into the 2021 schedule. So that part we don't know. What we do know is, of course, as you said, the first probably 7 or 8 races of the schedule are going to be ran without fans anyways. So logistically, there are tracks. I heard a lot of people say, North Wilkesboro is typically. I mean, you could race on that track. The surface is fine. The grandstands aren't, but there's no fans in the stands anyway.
It's not though.
Well, I know. I'm just saying
it needs a lot of work. There's no way Wilkesboro shows up.
Right. That's a nostalgic fan going, ooh, let's do that. But
that's
I mean,
3 years.
There are, there's South Boston. There's Myrtle Beach. There's places that you could conceivably go where you don't necessarily have to worry about logistically fans coming in and out of the stands. You mentioned Iowa being a good race. I know Jacob has said, Iowa won't run Cup because there's no infrastructure going in and out of the racetrack. Blah blah blah.
Well, we both said that, and that's what's kind of out there right now. It's a similar situation to Kentucky,
right?
Where they used to be, but they fixed Kentucky,
right?
And I don't think Iowa's necessarily a candidate this year, though I suppose they could. But boy, it would be logistically, and again, if you're doing it without fans, then that. Right. That access doesn't
You take
matter
out the
much.
traffic aspect of the whole thing,
right.
So you won't necessarily need as much infrastructure. You just have to have a way to get the cars in and out. So.
Right. But I do think that you've got now, the problem with the South Bostons and all of that is that, none of them have the soft walls or, the type of barriers or whatever. So I don't know what NASCAR is thinking in terms of, if we're going to go back to a track, do they all have to have the, all of that? So, I mean, for this year, I think you're just trying to take the tracks you normally race at and come up with a schedule to do as many of those as we can in the order that we can, so we don't have to completely do a 52-card pickup and, remake the schedule. But, when it comes to 21, I think unless, as you say, and I hadn't thought about that, but unless you've already got a track that's sort of committed and ready to go that they haven't announced yet that's different, I think you're probably keeping 2021 much the same. Yep. But these are things we can talk to Adam Stern about when we bring him out.
Yeah, thank God, because I know that there's somebody in this world who is a better expert on all this than us. And so we are going to go
people.
We're going to go to the strutmasters.com hotline and talk to one of the top guys on that master list that I mentioned. I call him the TMZ of the NASCAR sports breaking news
that's
department.
Flattering or not?
I don't know if it's flattering or not, but hopefully he's not offended by it. I think everybody in the media gets their breaking news story, or most people get their breaking news stories from this guy. He is from the Sports Business Journal. We welcome Adam Stern to the Inside Pass, and I'm going to be the advocate here and just ask the most obvious 2 questions. Number 1, when are we going to go racing, and where are we going to go?
Hey guys, that's a great question on both accounts. Nothing is confirmed yet. NASCAR has been talking to, teams and tracks and, elected officials about all sorts of options. Clearly they want to do the Coca-Cola 600 on May 24th. The question is whether there's going to be a race the week before. I don't see any races before that week before, so that would be May 17th, I believe. We're looking at potentially as a one-day show somewhere on May 17th. There was some talk this past week about Homestead, and then over the weekend and into yesterday, some teams expressed concerns about flying and staying in hotels for the first race. Even if it's a one-day show, you might not have to stay in hotels, but you would have to obviously fly to Miami. So some teams expressed some concern about that, and because of that, NASCAR is now looking at also potentially the option of Darlington. if they want to go down the route of doing a driving distance event for the first race. So a lot of things going around right now. Theoretically, they could even change it up from there. They've been basically telling teams and telling their partners all sorts of different options. So, again, yesterday, what they were saying is if we go down the driving distance route, it could well be Darlington. But look, things are changing by the day. States are starting to open back up. We just saw Georgia yesterday make an announcement they're opening back up. Does that change things to any extent? South Carolina is also taking steps. So it could well be Darlington, but at this point, nothing final has been communicated. And, anywhere in the Southeast is possible at this point. As far as Texas, it's looking more like that's going to be the June 7th, June 6th weekend, I believe it is, with IndyCar, if that happens. So I don't think it's going to be Texas, but I do think, somewhere kind of on this southeastern corridor is where we're likely going to see it.
I think the hardest part of this for me to envision right now, Adam, is that, we haven't even gotten to a point where teams can get into the shops to work on the cars yet. And I know that they had, a couple of cars ready for Atlanta and Homestead, et cetera. But, still, in order to go racing anywhere, you've got to be able to get in the door and get your cars loaded and get things going. What are you hearing about the prospects of North Carolina's lockdown being expired on the 30th and not being renewed?
I don't know the specifics about the state overall, but what I do know is that, NASCAR's definitely unleashed their full force of lobbyists and their own connections in recent weeks. And so they've been already trying to talk to people like, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper about this. Now, what we know is that this week there was going to be some sort of big meeting. I don't know if it was going to be virtual. I would presume it probably was, but I definitely don't know that. We don't know for sure who's going to be on it, whether it's going to be, Roy Cooper and Jim France and Steve Phelps themselves. Probably, at least one of those people on the NASCAR side you would assume will be, if it's someone that they're meeting with, like the actual governor. But, clearly they're talking to his office at a minimum and discussing the parameters for getting this restarted. So, look, it's definitely, as you said, you're exactly right. You can't put the cart before the horse. The first step is getting shops reopened. I think the fact that they've gotten to the point this week where there's going to be a meeting after what I understand were several weeks of discussions with their lobbyists and them themselves at NASCAR and local and elected officials in several states, as we saw yesterday with Texas, but also including North Carolina. I think, clearly I think there's a chance that they already have a bit of a framework worked out, and maybe now they're just trying to move towards ironing out the final differences. But we'll just have to see. You're exactly right. If you can't restart if you can't get the shops open, you can't get the cars to go race anywhere. So it's definitely, a major impediment, but it's a major impediment until it's not. And they can announce something at any moment, and all of a sudden we have news that they've reached a deal and the shops are going to be open in 2 weeks or, on May 1st or what have you. So, right now it's kind of like, of course, until they make an announcement, you got to have to view it, with however you want to put it, skeptically or with a grain of salt, et cetera, because anything could happen. But, the fact that they were having this meeting, to me, that indicates things were moving in a good direction if you're NASCAR, because theoretically, if you're Governor Roy Cooper in North Carolina and you have no interest in NASCAR's plan, why would you even take a meeting with them?
All right, and that's exactly right. Adam, hang on the line for a minute. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back, and we'll have more with you when we come back, all right?
No problem.
All right, we'll be right back more with Adam Stern when we come back on the Inside Pass.
.7 Greater Statesville, WSIC, where North Mac turns first for breaking news and severe weather alerts.
Headlines for Davidson and the region. Here's WSIC News. You've tuned in to hear local news, and so have a lot of other people. Your business could be advertising right here. Find out how affordable it can be. Call 704-872-6345, 704-872-6345.
Hey radio family, it's Margaret Beveridge from the WSIC News Desk. The future of the Terrell Country Store has been in limbo for months. Now the new owner has come up with a solution to save it. The plan is to dismantle the building piece by piece and place it in storage until a new location is found, said Robert Eads, local business owner and history buff. Prestige purchased the Terrell Country Store land in late 2019 along with 2 connected parcels. For more, visit hickoryrecord.com. Some South Carolina retail stores and public beach access points that had been closed to halt the spread of the coronavirus will be allowed to reopen this week, Republican Governor McMaster announced on Monday. McMaster issued orders to allow reopenings to take place for some retail stores Monday, April 20th, and public beaches at noon today. For more, visit fox46charlotte.com. Stay tuned to WSIC throughout the day for more. I'm Margaret Beveridge from the News Desk.
I'm Ryan Scott with Randy Marion here in Statesville, and times are tough right now, and we get it. But there are deals if it makes sense for you to buy a new vehicle at this time. 0% up to 84 months and deferring payments up to 120 days. No payment for 120 days. That might help the budget right now with what's going on. So come see us at Randy Marion Chevrolet of Statesville and see if a new car, truck, SUV, or anything we have on the lot makes sense for you to buy today. We'll do the best we can to help you during this tough time. Randy Marion Chevrolet Statesville, I-40.
Why should I care? To provide hope and healing to those impacted by domestic violence and sexual assault. Join me, Melissa Nieder, on Why Should I Care to learn more about this mission of Safe Alliance.
Thursdays at 8 on News Talk 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Now more than ever, Gullion's Christian Supply encourages all of us to seek the Lord as individuals and families. In this special time together at home, let's sing, play, study, and pray for the glory of God and our own eternal good. Gullion's is here to help. We offer Bible study and devotional materials, hymnals, inspirational games and puzzles, and trustworthy curriculum and support for schooling at home. Visit us soon or call and we'll ship your order. See Gullions.com for more info. Gullion's Christian Supply and Homeschool Headquarters, where the Bible stands.
Hello, race fans. I'm Tom Baker, inviting you to join Randy Miller and me every Tuesday morning from 11 to noon for the Inside Pass, an hour of motorsports conversation with your calls and special guests here on WSIC.
I'm Chase Elliott, and you're listening to the Inside Pass.
Welcome back to the Inside Pass here on WSIC. Randy Miller, Tom Baker with you. And on the Strutmasters.com hotline, we have our buddy Adam Starn from Sports Business Journal. Before you called in, Adam, Tom and I were kind of kicking around the idea of what would a typical NASCAR schedule be like now, because a lot of these tracks like Sonoma we know is not going to happen for at least for the foreseeable future. So on social media, a lot of people are kind of plugging in tracks that they would love to see NASCAR run at. And Tom and I kind of was talking about next year's schedule because it was supposed to come out, sometime this month, but now with the pandemic, of course, they're trying to work on 2020. Have you heard anything about the 2021 schedule and what's going to happen with the schedule, if we're going to get that grand schedule that we're all looking forward to next year?
I mean, I think clearly NASCAR is going to try and do this in a bit of a logical order. So I definitely don't, it would be absurd for them to release the 2021 schedule right now when we don't know the 2020 schedule. So right. I definitely expect them to follow a bit of a logical order there as far as what they announce publicly. Clearly, the coronavirus pandemic touched off in mid-March in the U.S. In terms of when things really shut down. Right. They've been working on this 2021 schedule for long before then. So I definitely think that they've made some, inroads for sure in what they were planning to do. I'm sure that they hadn't totally completed all those discussions. For example, one that we know for sure is Nashville. Nashville is a situation that has not been resolved. We would know if it would be because they would be happy to announce it if there was a done deal. And so that's an example of something that, that's at least one public example of something we know that could be on the 2021 schedule that's not done yet. So, and a lot of those things probably likely got delayed, these talks, because of the whole COVID situation. So I would think for sure that the 2021 schedule release is going to be delayed. Heading out of the Phoenix weekend, about 2 months ago, at this point, I guess a month and a half or what have you, there was a report, and I was hearing the same things at the time privately. I hadn't been able to confirm it yet, but then Steve Phelps confirmed it to the Arizona Republic that, NASCAR had already kind of pumped the brakes on releasing the full 2021 schedule in April. They're immersed in a lot of talks, even, again, before this pandemic, they were immersed in a lot of talks with all sorts of wide-ranging entities, tracks all over America, football stadiums, talking about potential, street circuit races, things like that. So a lot of these talks were still taking longer than I think what they could have been able to. Not everything was done, so they couldn't release the full schedule in April anyway, or this month anyway. So, at this point, with everything that's happened, I think, clearly we're looking at a delay for the 2021 schedule. NASCAR could get to releasing the revised 2020 schedule pretty soon here, I think, or at least kind of give us a roadmap for the first several races back. in the near future, potentially this week. So that'll kind of get the ball rolling, of course, in terms of getting closer to getting, to what the 2021 schedule is. But yeah, I mean, clearly it has to be delayed. I think you've probably seen Fox Sports' Bob Hocker say this before, and I could pretty much echo it, is like, we've all heard every rumor. I mean, there's so many tracks that have been rumored that, and without being confirmed, that it's tough to throw too many out there, because it's like, you could just assume, I mean, if you guys want to go all, name certain tracks and say, have you heard a rumor about them? I mean, it's probably going to be yes, but if the follow-up is confirmed, the answer is definitely, no right now. So, unfortunately, that's where we're at. I'm definitely trying to dig on that. And again, we have all heard names. Some of those names have been thrown out publicly in various means and ways. Like Gateway Motorsports Park has said publicly before they'd love to be on the 2021 schedule. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. Nothing's confirmed yet, but that's an example of a track that would love to be added. Now known as Worldwide Technology Raceway. But yeah, nothing confirmed yet.
It's interesting because I mentioned to Randy in the first segment before we brought you on that because of all of this sort of uncertainty in the timing and the fact that they haven't been able to, they've been spending so much time suddenly worrying about 2020 that you haven't been able to make any real progress with 21 in all of this. Do you think that there's a possibility that a lot of those newer tracks, they just won't have time to sufficiently get deals done and together before 21 now because of this delay? Do you think the 21 schedule looks a lot more like what this year's schedule would look like because of this issue, and then 2022 becomes the sort of, hey, let's go do all this different stuff just in time for the brand new car to come out?
Yeah, I think that's a great, observation there. I can tell you this, first and foremost, the short answer is yes, I think that's possible. At the same time, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to give up on everything for 2021. Right. But no question, one thing I know for sure is that some of the talk, and I got this confirmed with Steve Phelps himself on the record, that some of the discussions they were having were for, potential opportunities that may not be ripe until 2022. That was before the pandemic. So even before the pandemic, they were working on some things that may not have happened until 2022 anyway. And so now that this has happened, yes, absolutely, we could see some of these opportunities pushed back. A street circuit, for example, is it now impossible for 2021? Impossible might be a stretch, but clearly with everything going on across the country, it didn't get easier. I don't know how anyone can make an argument that it just got easier. So it was already looking to be where some of those kind of exotic opportunities that weren't a permanent circuit, permanent track, might have already been taken till 2022. So yes, I think for sure we could see some of those delayed. But as far as specifics, again, unfortunately, it's too early. And part of the reason it's too early is just because people aren't talking yet. I mean, like tracks like Circuit of the Americas have been mentioned, but if you go try and ask Bobby Epstein, the chairman of COTA, he's probably not going to respond to you right now. So right. I've tried.
If he's wise, he would. Yeah.
Like, if I can't get through, nobody's going to get through. I'm still intrigued about NASCAR racing on a football stadium. That just blows my mind that was even a thought in somebody's mind. So we kind of know where NASCAR's kind of wanting to go in terms of their schedule, the schedule that was been floating around social media for the last several weeks. But nothing's been really talked about in terms of Xfinity and trucks. I'm assuming, of course, they're trying to get the Cup schedule worked out before they worry about the other two series. But I've heard everything from they're just going to cancel the entire season to, they're just going to run the exact same schedule. Do you know anything? Have you heard anything about what they're going to do with the Xfinity and Truck Series schedules after Cup gets going?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I mean, obviously, nobody can roll anything out, and canceling the entire season, I mean, that would be an extremely, that would be the word, that would be an extreme step. So, it's something that we have, I have tried to check in on from my, from what I understand from people kind of in that series or who pay attention to, Xfinity Truck Series, they don't think that's going to happen. I mean, I asked someone a couple, last week, and their response was, 0% chance that happens. So, at least as far as a team president at, a team that involves themselves in some of those series, last week they were saying 0% was their response. But as far as, no chance that the whole season is just going to be canceled. But at the same time, no one knows anything for sure right now. So who knows? But as of right now, from what I'm hearing not to expect that.
That would be a devastating blow to teams, just about any team, to not be able to run an entire schedule.
And that's why I don't think it would happen unless it had to happen. I mean, these guys know, NASCAR knows, not only do they want content for their fans, if they can do it in a safe manner, of course, which is just their general modus operandi 24/7, 365 usually. But then you throw in the fact that, like you said, you would be forcing teams out of business.
Right.
That's a catastrophe. So I think, it's way too early for them to be thinking about canceling the whole season. I mean, the NASCAR season doesn't usually end till November, and they're thinking about maybe even going into December this year if need be. So in terms of canceling the rest of the season in April, I don't see why they would rush to that.
I agree. So let's talk about the iRacing thing. I mean, the ratings have been coming out, consistently every week. I mean, you've been posting them on your feed as well. The 18 to 49 demographic seems to be where they're kind of gaining momentum in terms of that. But at the same time, in the last 4 weeks, we've lost one driver sponsorship and one driver completely in the sport. So, from the behind-the-scenes look, does NASCAR think that this is a great idea, to keep the content out there, even though that, behind the scenes there's a lot of controversy and things going on behind the scenes that they probably weren't anticipating when they started this whole invitational thing?
I mean, yeah, clearly no one went in their wildest dreams when, this whole the whole 2020 has been a movie in and of itself. I mean, every day and week feels like it's part of a movie. Yeah. And clearly I think when the section of the movie where, when we shut down in Atlanta and rumblings started emerging about this potential, moving iRacing to TV thing started coming out, I don't think anyone envisioned that, a driver as highly touted as Kyle Larson would destroy, part of their career or maybe even the entirety of their career, because of iRacing. So clearly I think that's had an effect and, caused everyone, no matter who you are in NASCAR, whether you're, the custodian at the NASCAR building or you're, Jim France, to kind of pay attention to, like, what the heck just happened. But that being said, they're not going to cancel the whole thing because of it. They've been, before, unfortunately, the Kyle Larson debacle, they had nothing but, pretty much good news. I mean, the Bubba Wallace thing, that was an incident, I guess you could say, but that was really blown largely out of proportion on so many levels. I mean, that sponsorship was probably like $5,000 tops. It's not a long-time sponsor of I mean, it's a company that's been with RPM, but they're not like a company that's sponsoring them every week. I don't even remember the last time I've seen Blue Emu on the 43 in real life. I mean, I know they have been on the 43 in real life, but it's not something that's constant. So I think that one was a little bit blown out of proportion. It was nothing compared to Kyle Larson on so many levels, of course, not just how serious of an incident it is for Larson, but also just the straight fallout. I mean, the sponsorship loss, the loss of his job. So, no one, I don't think, envisioned that. And I think that caused a lot of people to think twice. And we've seen some kind of unofficial, not pro-invitational series events that eNASCAR.com was going to air that they're now not airing. So we've seen a little bit of a trickle-down effect there. But as far as the overall pro-invitational series, not only have they been receiving so much good acclaim before, that Larson debacle, that they don't want to shut it totally down, but also it would just be a bad precedent to shut down a good initiative because of one driver's, massive mistake. So I expect it to keep going as we saw it did Sunday. There's no reason at this point if it went on Sunday that it wouldn't keep going, but obviously it caught everyone's attention that what happened with Larson. I mean, it caught the whole world's attention, let alone the NASCAR world.
Right. Yeah, I think what it turned into is a good object lesson because in reality, it's a great example of how words mean things. And it's just important to understand that any time you're doing something that, tens of thousands of other people are paying attention to, it doesn't matter if it's official NASCAR or not. I mean, you just, there are certain standards that you have to live up to because you're in a sponsor-driven sport. And, I think that what this all has turned into is a pretty good object lesson that shows us that. And, and so going forward, hopefully now when we get back to the track, maybe we have even less of those issues because you can be a personality and you can be, you can say things without, there are just certain things you shouldn't say. And that was one of them, unfortunately. So yeah, this to me felt like, Adam, it turned into an object lesson. And not only should we not cancel the sim racing because of it, but I feel like it actually gave it more relevance to say, look, guys, it doesn't matter if you're at the racetrack or away from the track doing a sim race with your buddies. People are still paying attention, and you got to be careful.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, like I said, for something like this that was supposed to be just a nice way to help fans find something to do during the shutdown, to give drivers a way to keep from getting rusty during the shutdown. Overall, to have this happen to Kyle Larson, who was a rising star, is a total catastrophe for the sport. But that being said, I mean, you are right that at the end of the day, it definitely could have been said to anyone heading into this whole thing that this is something that in the esports world, you see some of. And it's in the esports world, people who pay attention to video games every day, they've seen things like this before. So, unfortunately, I guess people in the NASCAR world didn't quite realize that when you put on that headset, it's the same thing as when you have, you put on your helmet at the racetrack and you've got a mic in there and Fox Sports or NBC can hear it. So, unfortunately, the drivers didn't get that memo, or not all of them got that memo. But, Larson will probably be able to recover from this. He's determined to come back. He's already enrolled in the sensitivity training, and he's trying to come back to NASCAR.
We are going to let you go, Adam, but thanks for all the hard work that you do. Thanks for keeping us all in the media up to date on what's going on, and be safe out there. We will talk to you again soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.
No problem. Adam Stern, everybody from the Sports Business Journal. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with more of the Inside Pass right after this.
This is News Talk 105.9 Lake Norman, 100.7 Greater Statesville, WSIC, where Southern Iredell turns first for breaking news and severe weather alerts.
Financial stuff, it's so confusing. Where do you even start?
With a trusted partner who knows the options and can understand your individual needs. That partner is Joshua Doby from the North Main Financial Group in Cornelius and host of North Main Financial, Saturdays at noon on WSIC.
Hello, this is Joshua Doby, and I'm excited to share financial education while securing your financial future. Whether it's stocks, bonds, life insurance, partnerships, or anything else, we're here to help. Join me Saturdays at noon and visit us at northmainfinancial.com.
For WSIC, I'm Fox 46 meteorologist Nick Koser. Skies will stay clear overnight. We'll see that low drop down to 42. Tomorrow, another great day. Mostly sunny skies with a high of 68. And then for Thursday, a high of 69, but it'll be mostly cloudy with a 90% chance for showers and storms. From the Neighborhood Stormwatch Forecast Center, I'm meteorologist Nick Koser. Be sure to catch Chief Meteorologist Tara Lane today on Fox 46 News at 5.
Good morning. This is Margaret Beveridge with your latest news. Low-income families in North Carolina with school-aged children will soon get additional food benefits thanks to federal funds sought by the state government due to the COVID-19 crisis. Governor Roy Cooper announced on Monday that the state is among the first 4 approved by the U.S. Department of Agriculture to provide help with federal funds through the Pandemic Electronic Benefit Transfer. For more, visit statesville.com. 5 people have died following a COVID-19 outbreak at a nursing home in Cabarrus County. The Cabarrus Health Alliance says they began investigating Five Oaks Rehabilitation in Concord and tested more than 300 residents and staff at the facility. 74 people tested positive, 5 of whom were staff members who don't live in Cabarrus County. Officials now say 5 of the people who tested positive have died. Stay tuned to WSIC throughout the day for more. I'm Margaret Beveridge from the news desk.
Hey, I'm looking for some lumber.
Well, what kind do you need?
Well,
we've got TNG, shiplap, rough sawn, dressed, edge and center bead, C and better, hardwood, composite, and LVL.
Gosh, I didn't realize there was so much to choose from.
Well, at Little Shavers, we know wood. No need to visit the big box stores. Little Shavers Wood Shop is located just 7 miles east off I-77 in Statesville.
Pain or no pain, your wisdom teeth should be checked every year. Some wisdom teeth can become impacted by never breaking through the gum, which can lead to cysts, tooth decay, and gum disease. Find a surgeon near you for a complete examination at myoms.org.
This is Justin Lofton, and you're listening to the best guys on the radio, the Inside Pass.
Welcome back to the Inside Pass on WSIC. If you missed Adam Stern's interview with Tom and I, you can catch it on demand later on this week. Great stuff, as always, from the Sports Business Journal, one of the most respected journalists in our business. And apparently that whole thing about Darlington being the first race back is starting to gain steam because I'm looking at social media and there's a lot of rumblings on Twitter about Darlington being the first race back. So on the 17th,
I saw something about that yesterday, but at the time, the source that originated or that was tweeting it, I didn't put necessarily too much stock in.
Yes.
So, I wasn't sure what to think of that. Plus, South Carolina's been on a lockdown, but they're starting to, I think, already relax some of that. Yeah. So it would be interesting.
I'm okay with that as long as the throwback weekend is left untamed. I want them to maintain a throwback weekend.
Yeah,
I mean, I know because I feel like that. Yes, having racing back is great, but I feel like we should do as much to normalcy as possible, which I know it's hard to do without fans, but just the look of the cars and the whole idea of having a throwback weekend wouldn't be the same if we didn't do it at Darlington.
Well, this is where we're at now, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're in a situation where just like when IndyCar revised their schedule this latest time, all of a sudden a third Indy race appeared, right? Where there was two before.
Two Darlington races?
This is right. This is kind of where we're at. What we used to.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of where we're at. Is we're trying to get races in.
Right. We need 36 races, even if we do 35 at Charlotte and one at Darlington. We have to get racing somewhere.
Yeah, I mean that's really where we're at. Because again, if you really believe that Sonoma's not going to be a thing, well, you got to have a race to replace that. Maybe Darlington's that race. I mean, that's just where we are. And you know what? I would be okay with that if we had to do doubles, and when I say doubles, I mean an extra race here, an extra race there where there wasn't supposed to be two at that track in a year. I'm okay with that. Whatever we can do.
Atlanta used to have two races.
Yes.
So why not?
Absolutely. I mean, let's just go racing and worry about where we're racing and when, or I should say not be so worried about where we're racing and when. As fans, I think we need to just realize that we have to go racing wherever we can this year in whatever order we can and just try and salvage as much as we can out of the season and hope that by the time we're done with it and we go into 21, life is normal enough again to where we can then go back to our normal full schedule and not worry about it.
Which kicks off with the Busch Clash on the road course at Daytona, which throws a whole monkey wrench into everything else already again. So talking about Darlington, it's funny because it transitions into the next story. Ricky Craven has decided that he's going to retire completely from the NASCAR sport at the end of the 2020 season. He posted a long message on Facebook the other day, basically just saying that he felt like there were people in the sport that know more about the current product than he does, and he just wanted to take a step back and let the people that know more about the cars and know more about the sport as it is today do more of the talking, because he kind of feels like out of touch basically with the way that things are right now. Respectable, I think, and kind of a great way to kind of bow out and say, you know what, I don't feel comfortable talking about this stuff because I haven't been in the car in 15 years or whatever. I would much rather have somebody else do it that knows what they're doing because they have more recent exposure to the car we're driving now.
Yeah, that long tweet was very interesting on a lot of levels. You pointed out what I consider to be sort of the PC part. And I'm sure it came from his heart. I'm sure he really believes everything he said there. But there was also a part of that tweet that, interestingly enough, dealt with Kyle Larson.
Right.
That told the story about, I think it was last year or maybe the year before, they had the 42 had a throwback scheme to his first race, Ricky's. And, of course, Ricky was all excited when he found this out and was only too happy to go and be a part of that. And he had his son with him, and they were around the car, and Kyle walked up, and Ricky said, it was obvious that Kyle didn't understand the history of the car he was running. And he said, I'm perfectly okay that he didn't acknowledge the history or really acknowledge me, but he didn't even acknowledge my son.
Right.
And basically saying there that Kyle basically kind of just blew them off and didn't really, if you've got a young, a young person around you, it takes 2 minutes to make that person feel special by saying, hello, how are you, whatever. And I think he was kind of laying out the story that maybe Kyle didn't didn't do all the things he could have done to, at least be nice and be, engaged. And again, I don't want to dump on Kyle, and I wasn't there, obviously, so I have no idea what actually happened. But I have seen a lot of times where drivers, even with us media, they just sort of turn their head and go the other way or whatever, and they don't. It's like, there's a lesson right there. Ricky never forgot that, and so I think, maybe part of the lesson that we can learn here while we're on shutdown is how can we as drivers, how can the drivers be kind of more cognizant of what's going on around them, even on the grid, on race day. Doesn't take too much to say hello.
Right, exactly.
And especially, I'm sure Kyle knew Ricky Craven, and so that was an interesting long tweet. It was almost like Ricky was sort of putting out part of his story there and doing a stream of consciousness kind of thing. But I will say this: Ricky was one of the most articulate and intelligent, analysts that we've had in the sport, and I wish him nothing but the best, because he's given a good part of his life to racing, and now he gets to go and sort of step back and spend a little more time out of the limelight and with his family doing things he enjoys doing outside of the sport.
Yep, absolutely. I want to kind of take this next topic and kind of transition into Thursday, because I think it would be a great topic for all of us to discuss while we're all here together on Thursday. But Bob Pockrass published an interesting story last week about what the most iconic number is in NASCAR, in history of the sport. He named his top 10, which includes Dale Jr., both in the 8 and the 88. The 6, the 17, 11, 2, 24, 21, 43, and 3 was the top of his list, of course, Dale Earnhardt. So who would be on your list if you had to pick? I mean, he had pretty much all of the top guys, but there are a couple people missing from the list that I noticed. And he explained why they were missing from his list, but...
Yes.
Yes.
That's my list. all the ones he said, yes. I mean, I don't know who he took them all. Like, who else would you put in there?
The three numbers that I came up with that he responded, because of people, he asked for people's opinion, and people responded. The first one was 48. Because they thought, why is Jimmy not on there? And he said, I mean, it's he should be, but it's still too early. Like he still hasn't built. He still has a legacy left. Like there's still more of him to do. Exactly. And he's the most iconic driver in the 48. It's not like you look at all these other numbers, and there's plenty of people before Denny Hamlin and before Darrell Waltrip, that have driven those numbers.
Right.
So with the 48, he's pretty much the only one. The 28, Davey Allison, was on the list as well. And he basically kind of said, yes, there's a legacy there, but he wasn't a long-term standing driver enough to build that legacy in the 28. Like people see him in the 28, but
if you look at the 28 number,
right,
Buddy Baker, Grey Ghost, Bobby Allison drove it. Cale Yarborough won Daytona with it.
Yeah.
The 28 was an iconic. Had several drivers of history. It isn't just Davey Allison.
That's true.
I don't agree with putting the 48 on yet, because, as you said, Jimmy's not done.
Right.
And now
he still might not be.
Yeah, he's starting to talk about not being done at the end of 20 now, because and I could understand why, because we may not get half the season.
He's been retired for 3 months already. So.
Yeah, so he may run up to 21. I think the whole goal was Jimmy wanted out before the Gen 7 car came in, because I think he felt like that was a good time for him to
like
get out.
A Ricky Craven type of situation where I don't think I'm too old to know how this car is going to run, and I don't want to take.
I don't want to be that guy. Put somebody younger in it that maybe more. Yeah, and so now he's going to have another year probably, so he may come back in 21. So I don't think he put 48 on there yet. And as you said, that's really only associated with him. Now you can make the case for 43. Really being only associated with Richard Petty, although other drivers plenty have driven it.
It's still been a Petty car.
And it's one with John Andretti and Hamilton and whatever. But that was an era. And I think eventually we'll put the 48 on there, because the 48 was an era.
Right.
In this era, the 48 is the number. And so, yeah.
That's right. The other number on there was a 9 car that Chase and Billy drove. So we are going to get out of here for the week. Nick DeGroot will join us next week from motorsport.com. We'll see you Thursday on Motorsports Madness. For Tom Baker, I'm Randy Miller. Have a great week. Be safe, and we'll see you at the racetrack, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks. Have a great week, everyone.